Elliot, he replied, accepting the water with a nod of thanks. I apologize for loitering. I'll move on if it's causing problems. Harlan studied him, noting the careful articulation, the straight posture even, while sitting on concrete. That was good advice you gave Caitlin about her pivot. Elliot looked down. Force of habit. I didn't mean to interfere. You've trained before. It wasn't a question. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Elliot sighed. A long time ago. Harlan nodded, not pushing further. You're welcome to watch from inside rather than through the window. Might be more comfortable. Surprise flickered across Elliot's face before he controlled it. That's generous, but I don't think everyone would be comfortable with that arrangement. Probably not, Harlan agreed candidly. Their loss. He stood, brushing off his pants. The offer stands. And Elliot, that spot behind the building, no one will bother you there. At least it's out of the rain. As Harlan walked away, Elliot stared after him, a complex emotion crossing his weathered features. Something between gratitude and wariness, as if kindness had become unfamiliar territory. Over the next week, whispers about the dojo stalker spread through classes and parent circles. Elliot continued his routine, collecting cans, reading in the parking lot, occasionally watching classes from a distance. Some days he disappeared entirely, only to return the following evening. Did you hear about the homeless guy? Michael asked during water break, huddled with several other students. My dad says he might be dangerous. He's not dangerous, Leo defended. He's just quiet. Then why does he hide and watch us? Another student challenged. It's weird. Travis, who had been listening nearby, snorted. Because he's a creep. Or maybe he thinks he's learning secret ninja moves. He adopted an exaggerated stance, swaying drunkenly. Master of trash foo. The children laughed, all except Leo, who looked uncomfortable. Unknown to them, Mr. Harlan had been within earshot. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he said nothing, deep in thought. That evening, as Elliot sat reading on his usual curb spot, Caitlin, the girl he'd helped with her kata, approached hesitantly, her mother waiting anxiously by their car. Thank you for helping me with my form, she said quickly. I got it right at testing today. Before Elliot could respond, she thrust a small paper bag toward him and hurried back to her mother. Inside, he found an apple, a granola bar, and a handwritten note. Thank you, Sensei. The word made something shift behind his eyes. A memory, perhaps, or a long-buried emotion. From the dojo doorway, Mr. Harlan watched the exchange, the beginnings of an idea forming in his mind. Dude, check out what I posted. Travis laughed, showing his phone to a group of friends at the dojo entrance. On screen was a video of Elliot from afar, gathering cans and watching through the window, with the caption, Master of Trash Foo, the Dojo Stalker. Comments were already piling up, some laughing, others questioning whether it was right to mock someone down on their luck. That's messed up, Travis, said Miguel, one of the older students. Take it down. Why? It's hilarious. The guy's been creeping around for weeks, Travis defended. If he doesn't want attention, he should go somewhere else. The argument was cut short as Mr. Harlan called them inside for warm-ups. Travis shoved his phone in his pocket, not noticing Leo watching from nearby with a troubled expression. Later, that afternoon, Elliot returned to his spot behind the dojo. The video had made its rounds, and several passing students pointed and whispered. If he noticed, he gave no indication, sitting on the curb with the same quiet dignity. A newspaper spread across his lap. Mr. Harlan emerged from the back door, a bottle of water in one hand and a flyer in the other. He placed both beside Elliot. Open mat day tomorrow, he said, tapping the flyer. Anyone can come in and practice. No formal classes. Elliot glanced at the paper without touching it. I appreciate the thought, Mr. Harlan. Ever feel like showing them what you know? Harlan asked casually, though his eyes were sharp. A flicker of something, amusement perhaps, crossed Elliot's face. I doubt they're interested in what I know. You might be surprised. Harlan straightened up. The offer stands. Sometimes, the best teaching comes from unexpected places. As Harlan walked away, Elliot picked up the flyer, studying it thoughtfully before folding it neatly and tucking it into his book. Open mat day arrived with a larger crowd than usual. Word had spread about the dojo stalker, and curiosity had drawn extra spectators. Parents chatted in small groups while students practiced freely across the mat, some working on katas, others sparring lightly, the youngest ones simply tumbling and playing. Mr. Harlan supervised it all with a watchful eye, occasionally offering guidance where needed. His gaze frequently drifted to the door, as if expecting someone. Travis, showing off with high spinning kicks for a group of admirers, noticed Elliot quietly entering the dojo. The homeless man stood just inside the doorway, still wearing his worn jeans and faded jacket, looking uncomfortable but determined. A hush fell over the nearest students as they noticed him, the whispers quickly spreading throughout the room. "Well, look who it is," Travis called out loudly, walking toward Elliot, with an exaggerated bow. "The great master has decided to join us." Snickers rippled through the crowd. Some parents shifted uneasily. Others looked annoyed at the intrusion. "You've been watching long enough," Travis continued, playing to his audience. "Come on, show us something. Try something." Elliot remained still, his expression neutral. "I'm just here to observe. Mr. Harlan invited me." "Did he now?" Travis looked around for approval from his peers. "Well, since you're our guest, maybe you could demonstrate your incredible trash can technique?" More laughter, louder this time. A few parents joined in, one father audibly muttering, "Why is that guy even in here?" Elliot's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but he made no move to leave or engage. His eyes found Mr. Harlan's across the room, a silent question passing between them. Before Harlan could intervene, Leo pushed through the crowd, standing between Travis and Elliot. "Stop it!" the small boy demanded, his voice cracking slightly. "He's not hurting anybody. He helped Caitlin with her kata." "Oh, we've got a defender," Travis laughed, ruffling Leo's hair dismissively. "Relax, kid. We're just having fun." "It's not fun, it's mean," Leo insisted, his small hands balled into fists at his sides. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Mr. Harlan finally stepped forward, his presence immediately commanding attention. "That's enough, Travis," he said firmly. Then turning to Elliot with a gentler expression, "Actually, I was hoping you might demonstrate something for us today. Just a kata. No sparring." Murmurs swept through the room. Travis looked stunned, then smug, clearly expecting embarrassment to follow. Elliot hesitated, scanning the faces around him. Skeptical parents, curious children, mocking teenagers. Finally, his eyes settled on Leo, who looked up at him with complete faith. "Just one," Elliot agreed quietly. He moved toward the center of the mat, removing his worn shoes and placing them neatly at the edge. In his sock feet, he stood silently, for a moment, eyes closed, gathering himself. A few snickers broke the silence, quickly hushed as Elliot began to move. The transformation was immediate and stunning. His body, which had seemed ordinary moments before, suddenly displayed extraordinary control. Each movement flowed with precision. Blocks, strikes, turns executed with a grace that spoke of decades of practice. His worn clothing no longer seemed relevant as the form took shape, a complex kata that even the most advanced students recognized as far beyond their current abilities. Silence fell over the dojo. Every eye was fixed on Elliot as he moved through the final sequence, his breathing controlled, his focus absolute. The kata concluded with a powerful strike that seemed to vibrate the air itself, followed by perfect stillness. For several heartbeats, no one moved or spoke. Then, a single person began to clap, Leo, his face shining with vindication. Others joined tentatively at first, then with genuine appreciation. "That was Goju Shiho," Mr. Harlan said into the silence that followed, naming one of the most advanced, katas in karate. 54 steps of the wooden man, few masters perform it that well. Parents began whispering urgently to one another, "Who is this guy? Did you see that? I've never seen anything like it." Travis stood slack-jawed, his earlier mockery forgotten. When he finally recovered, His competitive nature surfaced. That was pretty good, he admitted reluctantly. But kata is just choreography. How about some light sparring, to show the kids some practical application? The challenge hung in the air. Mr. Harlan opened his mouth to intervene, but Elliot spoke first. "Thank you for allowing me to share," he said simply, bowing deeply to the room, then specifically to Travis. Without another word, he walked back to his shoes, slipped them on, and headed for the door. "Wait, you're leaving," Travis called after him, a mix of relief and disappointment in his voice. "What, afraid to spar?" Elliot paused at the doorway, looking back with the first real smile anyone had seen on his face. Small but genuine. "A good martial artist knows when to engage and when to walk away," he said quietly. "Another day, perhaps." With that, he was gone, leaving the dojo buzzing with speculation and Travis standing alone on the mat, his challenge unanswered, yet somehow still defeated. The next morning, Mr. Harlan arrived early at the dojo to find Elliot sitting on the front steps, waiting. "I appreciate what you did yesterday," Elliot said without preamble. "But I shouldn't have come. It's caused more disruption than help." Harlan unlocked the door, considering his words carefully. "I disagree. Those kids and their parents needed their assumptions challenged. So did I." He pushed the door open and gestured for Elliot to follow him inside. After a moment's hesitation, Elliot did. "Elliot M. Ray," Harlan said once they were alone in his office. "National karate champion, 2004 and 2005, former Marine. Disappeared from the competition circuit in 2006. Elliot's face remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. "You've been researching me." "Of course I have. A man with your talent shows up behind my dojo? I'd be a fool not to look into it." Harlan leaned against his desk. "What I can't figure out is how a national champion ends up homeless." "Life doesn't always bow to your plans," Elliot replied, the practiced evenness of his tone suggesting he'd explained this many times before, or perhaps had stopped explaining it altogether. "I won't press you for details," Harlan said, "but I would like to make you an offer. Help instruct my beginner classes. In exchange, you get meals and a clean place to sleep in the back room. It has a shower, a small fridge. Not luxury, but—" "Why?" Elliot interrupted, genuine confusion breaking through his careful composure. "You don't know me. And your clients, they won't all approve." Harlan smiled slightly. "Because that kata yesterday wasn't just technically perfect. It had soul." "That's rare." He paused. "As for my clients, let me worry about them. Some will complain. Others will understand what an opportunity this is." Elliot looked away, conflict evident on his face. "I haven't taught in a very long time. Like riding a bike," Harlan replied. "Just without the falling off part, hopefully." A reluctant smile tugged at Elliot's mouth. "I'll consider it." Before Harlan could respond, the front door chimed as someone entered the reception area. They heard Leo's voice, bright with excitement. "Mom, can I show you the move Elliot did yesterday, please?" Elliot and Harlan exchanged a look. "Think about it," Harlan said quietly. "But don't think too long. That boy out there already believes in you. Others will follow." As they walked out to greet Leo and his mother, neither man noticed Travis's father watching through the front window, his expression dark with disapproval as he took out his phone and began typing a message to other parents. The whispers that had started yesterday were about to become much louder. By afternoon, word had spread through the parent community. Opinions were sharply divided, some excited about a former champion possibly teaching their children, others uncomfortable with Harlan's decision to invite a homeless man into their carefully cultivated space. Travis stood in his kitchen, listening to his father on the phone. "I'm telling you, Mark, it's completely inappropriate. I don't care if he was a champion 20 years ago. The man's been living behind dumpsters. Who knows what issues he has, and Harlan just brings him in without consulting any of us?" Travis thought about the kata he'd witnessed, the undeniable skill, the intensity of focus. Despite himself, he was impressed and troubled. The man he'd mocked so easily had turned out to be something entirely different from what he'd assumed. His father hung up, looking satisfied. Well, that's that. Mark is contacting the local paper. If Harlan wants to make this a public matter, so will we. Dad? Travis began hesitantly. Maybe we should... Travis, trust me. His father cut him off. People like that need help, sure, but not around children. Not teaching our kids. There are proper channels for that sort of thing. Travis nodded, but doubt lingered. He picked up his phone, thumb hovering over the delete button on his Master of Trash Foo post. After a moment's hesitation, he put the phone down without taking action, the mocking image still visible on his screen. The early morning light filtered through the blinds of Mr. Harlan's office as he sat hunched over his computer, coffee cooling beside him. The search results on his screen painted a picture of a life in fragments. Newspaper clippings, tournament results, military commendations, Elliot M. Ray, 3 consecutive national karate championships in the early 2000s. Distinguished service in the Marines, featured in Martial Arts Today as one of America's most promising competitors. And then, nothing. After 2006, Elliot Ray simply vanished from public record. Harlan leaned back, rubbing his tired eyes. The man sleeping on the training mat in his back room, the same man who had been gathering cans behind his dumpster for weeks, was more than just a fallen champion. There was a deeper story here. The front door chimed, startling him from his thoughts. He closed the browser quickly, like a man caught prying into someone's diary. Elliot stood in the doorway, his borrowed clothes, a plain gray t-shirt and black sweatpants from Harlan's Lost and Found, hanging loosely on his frame. Despite the simple attire, there was something changed about him. Perhaps it was the clean-shaven face or the shower-damp hair, but he looked 10 years younger than the man who had performed that stunning kata yesterday. "Morning," Harlan said, gesturing to the coffee maker. "Help yourself." Elliot nodded in thanks, pouring a cup. His movements were economical, precise, the same efficiency Harlan had noticed in his kata. "Sleep okay?" Harlan asked. "Better than I have in months," Elliot admitted, his voice still carrying that unexpected gentleness that contrasted with his weathered appearance. "Thank you." Harlan waved away the gratitude. "I've been looking into your background," he said directly, seeing no point in deception. "You were exceptional. Why did you stop? You could have run a dojo of your own." Something closed off in Elliot's expression, not anger, but a practiced protection, like a door being quietly shut. "Life doesn't always bow to your plans," he repeated. From their earlier conversation, the phrase sounding more like a personal mantra than a casual observation. Harlan waited, letting silence do the work of encouragement. Elliot sighed, looking down into his coffee. "My wife, Amara, she got sick in 2006. Cancer. We had insurance, but..." He shook his head. "Anyone who's been through it knows insurance only covers so much. Experimental treatments, specialty care, medications not on the approved list. It adds up." The words came slowly at first, then with increasing momentum, as if a dam had broken after years of pressure. "I was competing, teaching, working security on the side, sleeping maybe 3 hours a night. It still wasn't enough." Elliot's gaze drifted to the window. "We sold everything. The car, the house, my tournament medals. Borrowed from everyone we knew. After she died, I just couldn't go back to the circuit. Couldn't face those people with their concerns about tournament standings when my whole world had collapsed." Harlan nodded, understanding filling the spaces between Elliot's words. "The debt followed you." "Like a shadow," Elliot confirmed. "I worked construction, security, whatever I could find. But the economy crashed and He straightened his shoulders slightly. "Excuses don't change reality. I ended up where I ended up." "And now?" Harlan asked. Elliot met his eyes directly. "Now I'm here. For how long, I don't know." "Stay," Harlan said simply. "Help me teach." "Not just the beginners, all of them. They could learn from you." "Your clients might have something to say about that," Elliot pointed out. As if on cue, the door chimed again. Jennifer Adams, Leo's mother, walked in, her expression determined. Mr. Harlan, I need to talk to you about... She stopped short. At the sight of Elliot, recognition and surprise crossing her face. Mrs. Adams, Harlan greeted her. You know Mr. Ray. He's going to be helping out around the dojo. Jennifer hesitated, then extended her hand. Leo hasn't stopped talking about your demonstration yesterday. He says you're the best he's ever seen. Elliot shook her hand, a flicker of surprise in his eyes at the gesture. He's a good kid, respectful. That speaks well of his parents. Some of the other parents aren't as... Jennifer paused, searching for the right word. Open-minded. There's a petition going around. And someone contacted the Herald. Harlan sighed. I expected as much. I should go, Elliot said quietly. No, Jennifer said with unexpected firmness. No, you shouldn't. Leo's gained more confidence in the past week than in months of classes. He told me how you helped him with his stance when no one was looking, how you never made him feel stupid for asking questions. She turned to Harlan. I'll talk to the other parents. Some will listen. Harlan smiled gratefully. And the others? Jennifer shrugged. They'll come around when their kids start improving under Mr. Ray's instruction. After she left, Elliot and Harlan stood in thoughtful silence. Looks like you've got at least one supporter, Harlan finally said. One is more than I had a week ago, Elliot replied, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. The next afternoon, a sleek silver sedan pulled into the dojo parking lot. A young woman in a pressed blazer emerged, notebook in hand, her eyes sharp with the hunger of a journalist sensing a story. Megan Taylor, 26, had been with the Herald for just under a year. Long, enough to know that human interest stories were her ticket to bigger assignments. And this one had all the elements: a fallen champion, controversy, redemption. If it played out right, it could be her first feature. Inside, she found Harlan leading a class of teenagers through drills. Off to the side, a man she immediately recognized as Elliot Ray from her research was quietly demonstrating a technique to Leo. Keep your weight centered, he was saying, gently adjusting the boy's stance. Power comes from balance, not just strength. Megan watched, noting the natural authority in Elliot's manner, not imposed, but earned. The contrast between his worn appearance and fluid movements was striking. After class, Harlan introduced them. Elliot, this is Megan Taylor from the Herald. She'd like to interview you. Wariness immediately replaced the calm focus in Elliot's eyes. I'm not interested in being a story, Ms. Taylor. People are already talking, she countered. Wouldn't you rather they heard the truth from you than speculation from others? Elliot considered this, then nodded once. No photographs. They sat in Harlan's office, the door left partially open. Megan positioned her recorder between them. Let's start with the obvious question, she began. How does a national champion end up homeless? The same way anyone does, Elliot replied evenly, one loss at a time. He shared the outline of his story, the competitions, his wife's illness, the crushing debt, without self-pity or dramatization. Facts stated plainly, as if reading a weather report. Do you want people to feel sorry for you? Megan asked bluntly. Elliot's response was immediate and firm. No. Pity is useless to everyone involved. Then what do you want? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He was silent for a long moment. Dignity, he finally said. The same thing everyone wants. Megan's expression softened slightly. Some parents are concerned about your situation. They worry about having their children taught by someone who's been living on the streets. Their concern is natural, Elliot acknowledged. I would worry too in their position. All I can offer is my knowledge and my word that I would never bring harm to any student. And what would you say to those who think you're exploiting this situation, using Mr. Harlan's generosity? A flicker of something, perhaps anger, quickly controlled, crossed Elliot's face. I'd say judgment comes easily to those who've never had to ask for help. Megan nodded, writing that down word for word. One last question, Mr. Ray. What do you hope to achieve here? Elliot looked through the partially open door, where Leo was still practicing the move he'd been taught earlier. "Second chances are rare," he said quietly. "I'm just trying not to waste mine." As Megan's article took shape at the Herald office, life at the dojo settled into a new rhythm. Elliot began teaching fundamentals to the beginner classes, his patient instruction drawing positive feedback from most students and parents. But not all. "I don't understand how you can allow this," Mark Wilson, Travis's father, confronted Harlan after a class. "The man was living behind your dumpster, for God's sake." "And now he's not," Harlan replied calmly. "He's a certified instructor with more tournament experience than anyone in this county." That was 20 years ago. Who knows what's happened since then? Mark lowered his voice, though his anger remained evident. "My son says he disappeared for 3 days last week. Where did he go? What was he doing? Have you even run a background check?" Across the dojo, Travis watched the argument with discomfort. Since Elliot's demonstration, he'd found himself oddly conflicted. The skills Elliot displayed were undeniable, exactly the kind of mastery Travis aspired to, yet admitting this meant acknowledging how wrong he'd been in his mockery. Meanwhile, Leo had attached himself to Elliot like a shadow, absorbing every correction, every instruction with remarkable dedication. Other younger students had begun to follow his example, forming a small but devoted group. After hours, when the dojo emptied, Elliot would train alone, moving through advanced katas with an intensity that spoke of more than practice. It was almost like meditation, a way of processing emotions too complex for words. One evening, Harlan stayed late, watching from the doorway as Elliot executed a particularly challenging sequence. "You're holding back when you teach," Harlan observed. "Why?" Elliot completed the form before answering. "They're not ready for more. Some are. Travis, for instance." A complicated expression crossed Elliot's face. "Travis has talent and anger, a dangerous combination." Harlan nodded in agreement. "He's trying to figure you out. They all are." He paused. "Did you know we have a board-breaking record here? 8 stacked pine boards. No one's touched it in 12 years. Elliot raised an eyebrow. "Your point?" "Sometimes people need something tangible, something they can see and hear. Breaking boards isn't about strength. It's about focus, commitment, following through." Harlan smiled slightly. "Just something to think about." As Harlan turned to leave, Elliot called after him. "Whose record is it? The 8 boards?" "Mine," Harlan replied. "From when this place first opened and I had something to prove." Elliot nodded thoughtfully, turning back to his training with renewed concentration. The Herald article appeared the following Sunday, featuring Elliot's story under the headline, "From Champion to Homeless, a Master's Return to the Mat." Megan had written it with surprising sensitivity, focusing on Elliot's journey without sensationalism. She described his teaching style, the respect he showed each student, and included quotes from Leo and Jennifer about the positive impact he'd had. The article didn't shy away from controversy. Mark Wilson's concerns were presented alongside Harlan's defense, but the overall tone suggested a community finding its way toward acceptance. That morning, Elliot sat on the dojo steps, reading the article with mixed emotions. The story was fair, more than he'd expected, but seeing his life laid out in black and white brought a strange vulnerability. "Is it weird?" Leo asked, plopping down beside him. "Seeing yourself in the newspaper?" Elliot folded the paper carefully. "A little. My mom says you're famous now," Leo continued, swinging his legs. "She says more people will come to learn from you." "Maybe," Elliot allowed. "Can you teach me to break boards?" Leo asked suddenly. "Like Mr. Harlan's record?" Elliot studied the boy thoughtfully. "Breaking isn't about strength, Leo. It's about focus. Seeing through the obstacle, not at it. Like when I'm scared of something?" A genuine smile spread across Elliot's face, a rare sight that transformed his features. "Exactly like that." Leo beamed at the approval. "Will you try to break Mr. Harlan's record someday?" The question hung in the air as other students began, arriving for morning classes. Elliot rose, offering Leo a hand up. Some records exist to inspire, not to be broken, he said cryptically. But later, when the dojo was empty, Elliot examined the breaking stands and boards stored in the equipment room, his expression thoughtful. The article changed everything. Within a week, class sizes had doubled. Parents from across town brought their children to see the homeless karate master. Some came out of genuine interest, others from morbid curiosity. Elliot weathered the attention with quiet dignity, focusing on teaching rather than the whispers that followed him. Harlan expanded the class schedule to accommodate the influx, with Elliot handling most beginner and intermediate sessions. One afternoon, as Elliot demonstrated a defensive technique to a crowded class, he noticed a camera phone pointed at him from the viewing area. A quick series of emotions crossed his face: discomfort, resignation, then determination, as he continued the lesson without acknowledging the intrusion. Later, Harlan found him in the back room, staring at his phone with a troubled expression. "Everything okay?" Harlan asked. Wordlessly, Elliot turned the phone toward him. On screen was a social media post, a video of Elliot teaching, already with thousands of views and comments ranging from supportive to cruelly mocking. "It'll pass," Harlan reassured him. "People will find something else to talk about." But they didn't. More videos appeared. Local TV stations called requesting interviews. A sports channel producer left a message about a potential documentary. Through it all, Elliot maintained his routine: teaching, training, helping around the dojo. He declined all interview requests and avoided cameras when possible. The back room became his sanctuary, sparse but private. One evening, as he organized equipment after classes, Travis entered the dojo alone. The two had maintained a careful distance since Elliot's demonstration, with Travis attending Harlan's advanced classes rather than Elliot's. "Need something?" Elliot asked, not pausing in his work. Travis shifted uncomfortably. "My dad's organizing some of the parents, against you being here." Elliot nodded, unsurprised. "I know. He says you got kicked out of competition, that you were violent." Travis hesitated. "Is that true?" Elliot set down the training pads he'd been stacking. "No." "Then why'd you disappear? You were at the top. Sometimes life gives you different priorities." Elliot studied Travis thoughtfully. "Your reverse punch has power, but you drop your guard when you execute it." The abrupt change of subject caught Travis off balance. "What?" "Tomorrow, 6 a.m. before regular classes. I'll show you how to fix it." Elliot returned to his task, effectively ending the conversation. Travis stood there a moment longer, confusion evident on his face before leaving without another word. The next morning, to Elliot's mild surprise, Travis showed up at exactly 6. They worked for an hour on form and technique, with Elliot offering corrections without commentary or judgment. By the end, Travis's punches were sharper, his guard more consistent. "Why are you helping me?" Travis asked finally, wiping sweat from his face. "I was a jerk to you." "You were," Elliot agreed without heat. "But your potential is more important than your past mistakes. True for all of us." Before Travis could respond, the door opened, and his father walked in, stopping short at the sight of them training together. "Travis? What are you doing here?" Mark demanded. "Training, Dad. Mr. Ray was showing me how to improve my reverse punch." Mark's expression darkened. "Get your things. We're leaving." "But now, Travis." The tension in the room was palpable as Travis gathered his gear. He glanced apologetically at Elliot before following his father out. Through the window, Elliot could see them arguing in the parking lot, Mark gesturing angrily, Travis defensive. The encounter left a bitter taste, one Elliot recognized all too well. Later that day, Harlan called a staff meeting which with just the two of them meant coffee in his office. "I've had an idea," Harlan began. "A fundraiser. Dojo Challenge Day. Open to the public, demonstrations, competitions. The proceeds would go to the West Side Shelter." Elliot raised an eyebrow. "The shelter where I stayed sometimes." "Exactly. It's good PR for the dojo, helps a worthy cause, and legitimizes my presence here," Elliot finished. Harlan didn't deny it. The community needs to see you as more than a curiosity or a charity case. This puts the focus on what you can contribute. Elliot considered it, turning the paper with Harlan's notes toward him. Board-breaking exhibition? People love it. Very visual. Harlan hesitated. I was thinking maybe you'd consider attempting the record. Your record. It's just a number, Harlan shrugged. Records exist to be broken. Before Elliot could respond, Leo burst into the office, excitement radiating from him. Mr. Ray, my mom says I can join the demonstration team if you think I'm ready. The interruption shifted the mood immediately. Elliot smiled at the boy's enthusiasm. We'll need to work on your form, he said, rising from his chair. Let's see what you've got. As they moved to the training floor, Harlan watched thoughtfully. The fundraiser idea had taken root, and he began making calls that afternoon. Local businesses agreed to sponsor. The Herald promised coverage. Even the mayor expressed interest in attending. What no one anticipated was how quickly things would unravel. 3 days before the fundraiser, Travis approached Elliot after class, his expression troubled. My dad found some old videos of you, he said without preamble. From a tournament in 2005, he's showing them to the other parents. Elliot's face revealed nothing. What videos? You fighting some guy. It got really intense. You. Travis hesitated. You broke his arm. A long silence stretched between them. Tournament fighting has consequences, Elliot finally said. Injuries happen. He's saying you did it on purpose, that you got disqualified. Elliot closed his eyes briefly. The match was reviewed by officials. I was cleared of intentional misconduct, but yes, I was disqualified from that event. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because it doesn't matter anymore, Elliot replied, a rare edge entering his voice. It was 20 years ago. But it did matter, as became evident the next day when parents began pulling their children from classes. The whispers had turned to open concern. Someone had edited the old tournament footage, showing only the moment of injury on a loop without context. Mark Wilson had organized his campaign well. By evening, half the students had canceled their attendance at the fundraiser. Local businesses began withdrawing their sponsorship. The final blow came when Harlan found graffiti spray-painted across the dojo door. Bums don't belong here. Elliot stood silently as Harlan photographed the vandalism for the police report. His face was impassive, but something had changed in his posture. A subtle withdrawal, as if he were already preparing to leave. This doesn't change anything, Harlan insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. We'll still hold the fundraiser. People will see the truth. Elliot shook his head slowly. I've brought trouble to your door, literally. He gestured to the graffiti. You've been good to me, James, better than anyone has in years. I won't repay that by damaging what you've built. So you're just going to leave? Let them win? Harlan demanded, frustration evident. Sometimes walking away takes more strength than staying to fight, Elliot replied quietly. That night, storm clouds gathered over the city, matching the mood inside the dojo. Elliot packed his few belongings into his backpack, leaving the borrowed clothes neatly folded on the cot. On top, he placed a handwritten note for Harlan. As rain began to fall, he slipped out the back door into the darkness, the weight of failure familiar on his shoulders. Morning brought no relief from the storm. Harlan arrived early, already knowing what he would find. The back room empty, the note on the cot simple and direct. Thank you for believing in me. Some debts can't be repaid, but I'll try. The students deserve better than controversy. E. Harlan crumpled the note in his fist, anger and disappointment warring in his expression. Outside, volunteers were setting up for the fundraiser despite the rain, their enthusiasm dampened but not extinguished. Leo arrived with Jennifer, immediately, searching for Elliot. Where's Mr. Ray? He asked, his small face creased with worry. He promised to help me with my demonstration. Harlan knelt to the boy's level. Elliot had to leave for a while, Leo. I'm not sure when he'll be back. But he has to come. Leo insisted, tears welling in his eyes. He promised, and he's supposed to break the boards. Jennifer placed a gentle hand on her son's shoulder. Leo, sometimes people have to leave even when they don't want to. He'll come back, Leo said with absolute certainty. He wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. As the day progressed, the rain intensified. Attendance was sparse. The local news crew arrived, but their interest had shifted from a feel-good story to controversy. Mark Wilson gave an interview outside, speaking of community standards and proper role models. Inside, Harlan went through the motions, leading demonstrations with the students who had remained loyal. The board-breaking exhibition was postponed, then canceled as equipment was damaged by rain leaking through the roof. By evening, it was clear the fundraiser had failed. Volunteers began packing up early, expressions grim. "He's not coming, is he?" Leo asked as the last guest departed, his earlier confidence fading. Harlan looked out at the rain-swept parking lot. "I don't think so, buddy." "It's not fair," Leo said, his voice small. "He was good. He helped everyone." "Life isn't always fair," Harlan replied, the words tasting bitter. "Sometimes the people who deserve a second chance don't get one." As they turned to go inside, headlights swept across the lot. A taxi pulled up and a figure emerged. Elliot, soaked from the brief walk, a determined set to his shoulders. Leo broke into a run. "Mr. Ray, you came back." Elliot caught the boy in a one-armed hug, his expression softening. "I made a promise." Harlan approached more slowly, questioning without words. "I came for the boy," Elliot explained simply, "and for myself." He looked past Harlan to the nearly empty dojo, the abandoned fundraiser setup, and nodded once, accepting the situation without comment. "We still have the boards," Harlan said after a moment. "If you're interested." A small smile touched Elliot's lips. "Let's give them something to remember." As they walked inside together, the rain began to ease, clouds parting to reveal the first stars of evening, small points of light in the darkness, persistent and unwavering. The morning after the failed fundraiser dawned clear and bright, as if nature itself had decided to grant a fresh start. Inside the dojo, Harlan and a small group of volunteers worked quickly to salvage what they could of the event. Tables were wiped dry, equipment checked for water damage, and a makeshift schedule hastily drawn up. "You really think people will come back?" Jennifer asked, as she helped Leo arrange chairs in front of the demonstration area. Harlan glanced toward the back room where Elliot was changing into a clean gia he'd provided. "They will. Trust me." The doubt in Jennifer's eyes was clear, but she nodded, turning back to her task with renewed determination. In the back room, Elliot stood before a small mirror, adjusting the white uniform that felt both foreign and familiar against his skin. It had been years since he'd worn a proper GI, the fabric crisp and weighted with memory and meaning. He ran his fingers along the worn black belt Harlan had lent him, tracing the frayed edges that spoke of years of dedication. Soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "People are starting to arrive," Harlan said, leaning against the doorframe. "More than I expected," Elliot nodded, tightening the belt with practiced motions. "Thank you for this," he said quietly. "Whatever happens today, thank you." Harlan studied him for a moment. "You ready to break some boards?" A small smile touched Elliot's lips. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." As they walked toward the main floor, the sounds of voices grew louder, curious, excited, skeptical. Word had spread overnight about Elliot's return, drawing an unexpected crowd despite the previous day's disaster. Stepping into the training area, Elliot was momentarily taken aback by the number of people. Parents, students, community members, even a few faces he recognized from his nights at the shelter. Near the back, a local news crew set up cameras, while Megan from the Herald scribbled notes in the front row. "There he is," someone whispered loudly. "The homeless karate guy." Leo broke away from his mother and ran to Elliot's side. "I told them you'd come back," he said proudly. "Nobody believed me, but I knew." Elliot placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder, drawing strength from his unwavering faith. At precisely 10 o'clock, Harlan stepped to the center of the mat and raised his hands for quiet. The murmurs gradually faded as all eyes turned to him. "Thank you all for coming to our rescheduled dojo challenge day," he began, his voice carrying easily through the room. As many of you know, yesterday didn't go quite as planned. This drew a few sympathetic chuckles. But sometimes life's greatest lessons come from our biggest challenges. Harlan gestured toward Elliot, who stood tall and composed despite the scrutiny. I'd like to introduce, or reintroduce, someone special. Many of you know him as the man from the newspaper article or the viral videos. Some of you have already benefited from his instruction. He paused, meeting several gazes directly. But I want you to know him as I do. Not as a homeless man, though circumstances brought him there for a time, but as a veteran who served this country with honor. As a national champion whose skill remains undiminished by hardship. And as a teacher, life sent us when we weren't ready to listen. A murmur ran through the crowd, some nodding in approval, others shifting uncomfortably. Today, Elliot Ray will demonstrate what decades of dedication to martial arts looks like. Not for glory or attention, but to remind us all that human worth isn't determined by a dress or bank account. With that, Harlan stepped back, and Elliot moved to the center of the mat. He bowed deeply, first to Harlan as the dojo master, then to the audience, and finally to the space itself, honoring the tradition of the art. The room fell silent as Elliot began a complex kata, different from the one he'd performed during his first visit. Where that had been a display of technical perfection, this was something more intimate. Each movement flowed with a liquid grace that made it appear both effortless and impossible, telling a story of struggle, perseverance, and hard-won peace. When the final movement concluded, there was a heartbeat of silence before applause erupted, hesitant at first, then growing in confidence. As the clapping subsided, a voice cut through from the back of the room. "That's all very pretty," Travis said, stepping forward onto the mat. "But kata is just choreography, right?" He looked directly at Elliot. "You said real martial arts is about application." Harlan moved to intervene, but Elliot raised a hand to stop him. "You're right," he agreed, surprising Travis. "Would you like to demonstrate with me?" Travis nodded, a complex mix of emotions crossing his face: determination, nervousness, and something like respect. "Light contact only," Harlan cautioned as Travis took position opposite Elliot. What followed wasn't the confrontation many expected. Instead, it became an impromptu lesson, with Elliot calling out techniques and Travis executing them. Elliot blocking, redirecting, occasionally demonstrating counters at reduced speed and power. It was collaborative rather than competitive, highlighting both Travis's skill and Elliot's control. After several minutes, they paused, and Travis, breathing hard but energized, turned to the audience. "Mr. Ray has been helping me refine my techniques," he announced, surprising his fellow students. "There's not a person in this room who couldn't learn something from him, even those of us who thought we knew it all." The last part was delivered with a rueful smile that drew appreciative laughter. As Travis rejoined the audience, Elliot caught sight of Mark Wilson standing near the door, his expression unreadable. The demonstrations continued. Younger students, showing forms they'd practiced with Elliot, Jennifer leading a self-defense workshop for parents. Throughout it all, Elliot moved between groups, offering quiet guidance and encouragement. By early afternoon, the energy in the dojo had transformed. Skepticism had given way to curiosity, and in many cases, genuine admiration. Donation boxes for the shelter filled steadily as people browsed silent auction items and signed up for special workshops. It was during a brief lull in activities that someone from the crowd called out, "What about the board-breaking record? Is that still happening?" All eyes turned to Harlan, who looked at Elliot questioningly. "The record stands at 8 boards," Harlan explained to the audience, "set by myself 12 years ago. It's a test of focus and power. Pine boards, 1 inch, thick, stacked together." A murmur of interest spread through the room. "Well?" The same voice pressed. "Is he going to try it?" Elliot stepped forward, his expression calm. "If it will help raise funds for the shelter, yes." The announcement sent a ripple of excitement through the crowd. People who had been preparing to leave found seats again. The news crew repositioned their cameras. Even Mark Wilson moved closer, curiosity overcoming his previous disdain. As Harlan and Travis set up the breaking stand, Leo approached Elliot with a bottle of water. "Are you nervous?" the boy asked. Elliot took a sip before answering. "Respect the challenge, but don't fear it. That's the balance." Leo nodded solemnly. "Like when I was afraid to try the flying kick, and you said the ground would still be there either way." A genuine smile warmed Elliot's face. "Exactly like that." When the time came, Harlan placed 8 boards in the stand, then looked at Elliot. "This is the record. Want to warm up with fewer first?" Elliot shook his head. "No, but I'd like to try 9. A hush fell over the room. Harlan raised his eyebrows, but added another board to the stack. 9 one-inch pine boards, a feat very few could accomplish. As Elliot positioned himself before the target,